Warbles, and welcome to the CNN Town Hall Debate. Today, we are discussing the economic future of America, presented by the 2020 hopefuls, in opposition to Donald J. Trump. Now, joining us first is the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg. Mayor Buttigieg, may you give us an overview of fiscal policy for the American viewers? Mayor Buttigieg. Pete.
Yes, sorry. Fiscal policy. Right. Let me just use this chalkboard I prepared earlier. Now, as you can see, there's two variables that the government can directly affect: taxation and government spending. If you want to expand the economy, it's quite simple. Government spending increases while taxation decreases. Should taxation decreases, consumers will spend more, and likewise, when governments spend more, the overall aggregate demand increases, which causes an increase in overall price level, which is, of course, an increase in GDP, which leads to a decrease in unemployment. Now, in the reverse case, should the government want to run contractionary fiscal policy to control inflation, they'll do the exact opposite with the exact opposite result: decrease in government spending or an increase in taxes, which lowers consumer spending. Both of these will lead to a decrease in aggregate demand, leading to a decrease in price level, leading to a decrease in GDP, and a rise in unemployment.
Thank you, Mayor Buttigieg. Now, my next question is about monetary policy. What is it and what's the difference?
Thank you, Mr. Hostman. I think that's a very interesting question. Now, monetary policy is controlled by the Fed. They use certain operations to control the money supply, whereas fiscal policy is determined by the laws Congress passes. Now, to describe monetary policy, I have a chalkboard again that has magically now been replaced with the arrows for monetary policy. Starting from the left here, we can see the four things the Fed can control directly and indirectly. The first one is open market operations. This is where they buy and sell bonds. The discount rate is the rate that banks pay to the Federal Reserve or the central bank whenever they borrow money overnight to meet their reserve ratio, which is the amount of money, the ratio of their money that they are required to keep on hand at all times and cannot be loaned out. Now, the federal funds rate is the rate that banks pay each other when they borrow money overnight. And this is not controlled directly by the Fed, but it is influenced by the other three variables. Now, when any of these things are done, buying, decreasing, the money supply increases, which of course causes a decrease in the interest rates, which causes an increase in the investment by businesses, which is an aggregate demand increase, causing an increase in price level, an increase in GDP, and a decrease in unemployment. Now, for contractionary monetary policy, the exact opposite is true. If you sell, increase, it causes a decrease in the money supply, and an increase, then a decrease, and then an increase again, just like before, but the exact reverse.
Why, thank you, Mayor Pete. You may now leave the building. Introducing our next 2020 candidate, Cory Booker.
Me llamo Cory Booker. Hola, yo hablo español.
Thank you, Mr. Booker. Can you please explain to us the money market graph regarding monetary and fiscal policy?
Okay, on the left, we have what happens when the money supply increases. Comprende? You can see the interest rate decreases and quantity of money increases. On the right, we have what happens when money supply decreases. The interest rate will increase, and the quantity of money will decrease.
Thank you, Booker. You should really get those eyes checked out. Introducing our next candidate, Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii. Now, Tulsi, a lot of question is around your policy. What makes it different from all the other candidates?
Aloha. Now, unlike my fellow comrades candidates, I have some problems with this expansionary mindset. And let me illustrate this point. And the problem with expansionary fiscal policy and more government spending, more military spending, is that as spending goes up, interest rates increase, and the American buyer, the American people, have a higher interest rate, and because of this increased interest rate, the business spending, business investment goes down, and a lot of the effects of expansionary policy is negated. And now this is what the Clintons, the Bushes, the military-industrial establishment,
Thank you so much, Ms. Gabbard. Have a safe trip back to Hawaii. Now, For our next candidate, the Vice President of the United States under Barack Obama, Vice President Biden. Vice President?
Thank you.
Now, there's one thing I'd like to get out of the way first. Barack.
Now, Vice President Biden, what effect does expansionary monetary and fiscal policy have on interest rates?
That's an interesting question. Now, for expansionary fiscal policy, as you can see, well, the interest rate is going to increase, which makes it harder for, hardworking American businessmen to get access to the funds they need. Now, for expansionary monetary policy, because the money supply has increased, it means that the supply of money is greater, which increases the supply of loanable funds, which decreases the interest rate, making it easier for your businessman, hardworking type people, people kind of like, the stereotypes. It makes it easier for them to get money.
Thank you, Vice President Biden. Now, our next candidate, last but not least, is Bernie Sanders. Now, Mr. Sanders, what type of combinations can you make with monetary and fiscal policy to ensure the best output, price level, and GDP?
Thank you for choosing me to answer this very important question. Universal health care is the most important.
Mr. Sanders,
No. This is important.
Mr. Sanders, this was about monetary and fiscal policy, not health care.
This is ridiculous. All right, well, if you insist, I'll talk about whatever this is. Now, if you have expansionary fiscal and expansionary monetary policy all combined in one, it means the top 1% of the American, it means that the output will overall increase. It means the price level will overall increase. It means unemployment will overall decrease. But the interest rates will overall, well, you don't know that for sure because you don't know how the money supply increase will interact with the increase in government borrowing. Now, if you have another example of expansionary fiscal... Yeah, that's too close. Get away. What was I saying? Contractionary fiscal policy and expansionary monetary policy. Well, you don't know what happens with any of the other things that are in there. You don't know what happens to price level. You don't know what happens to GDP, to unemployment. Because the two go against each other. You don't know what happens. But you do know what happens to one thing. You know what happens to the interest rates. The interest rates will decrease because the money supply increases while government borrowing decreases.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. And this just in, we have a surprise visitors for you guys at home. President Donald J. Trump.
Thank you. It would be good to be here if it wasn't fake news, CNN. I had some great things to say about the great American economy under my leadership, Donald J. Trump. Okay, I have one more example to give. I have one example from the horrible Obama administration. It was so bad because they did contractionary fiscal and contractionary monetary. It made it double bad, double decrease in GDP, double decrease in price level, double decrease in all the good things, and a double increase in the unemployment, and also a decrease in the interest rate, which made it easier for businesses. That's not important. It was just all bad. And I have a graph to show you what I mean. You can see here, this is me, I'm Trump. I do great, I do good. Obama, Hussein, we always forget about the Hussein. But where does that come from? Where does the Hussein come from? It comes from all the bad hombres out there in the East. And you can see it go down, and that is bad. Thank you. Vote for me.